I've been given the task to speak about an emerging group of healthcare professionals that may be influencing the pharmaceutical industry, not only today but in the future, and that's the pharmacist and the nurse. And I have to start off by saying that I still believe, from a pharmaceutical perspective and a personal perspective, that the physician is still the #1 customer for us, not only today but going forward. But it's incumbent upon us to really understand the changing climate, to really reflect how other people are influencing pharmaceutical selection. So with that in mind, I hope to provide you with a bit of data, trends, and insight into some of the opportunities that exist, provide a bit of my own experience, but more importantly, put the question out to all of you, is really to assess what influence these emerging healthcare professionals will have on your particular businesses. So I'm going to start off by asking a question, and the question is, what level of influence on drug selection do you feel pharmacists, nurse practitioners, and specialty nurses will have in Canada in the next 3 years? Interesting. So there's obviously a notion that they will have impact, and obviously depending on which business you come from, the impact will vary. Well, I think in summary, my presentation really focuses on a couple of major themes, and they're presented here on this slide. And that's really to say that there is a shift in stakeholder influence, and that's also based and embedded in regulations. And that will have a consequence for pharmaceutical companies in terms of their approach, marketing, and deployment. That the healthcare model as well is changing, with more of a focus towards primary care health networks engaging more of the broader healthcare team in terms of pharmaceutical selection. I think I'll show you pretty clearly that there is a correlation between specific disease states and the influence that these customers or professionals will have. And last but not least, with everything, there's opportunity, but there's also challenges that will be present for the pharmaceutical industry. So just to give you a bit of a background on the current climate, there's 28,000 pharmacists in Canada. 80% of those are community-based, so ones that are interacting on a routine basis with customers. From a nurse practitioner, a very specific subsection of the nurse population, there's 1,300 in Canada. That number continues to grow, with the majority of those nurse practitioners residing in Ontario. But the evolving additional focus on nursing is really the nurses that specialize in specific disease states, or otherwise alluded to as specialty nurses. And these are nurses that may be specifically involved in chronic diseases, and or more broad-skilled nurses that are involved more in the primary care networks, such as the LHINs in Ontario, the GMFs in Quebec. So I think that the current climate is obviously that there's a specific number of professionals, and they are growing in volume in Canada. We're all familiar with the traditional model, and this is more a one-on-one relationship that used to exist between patient and provider, specifically their family doctor, potentially a specialist, where they would get direction, they would get a prescription and get that filled. And I think the evolving trend really now is for a more holistic view, if you will, of the patient, where a number of healthcare professionals are obviously involved in not only counseling the patient, but as well in terms of the impact on pharmaceutical selection. And it really will vary, and the evolution of primary care family teams and networks are really increasing across the globe, and they're moving at different rates, if you will, by province. So I've tried to summarize, if you will, the 3 key components that I think are key and critical in terms of making your own assessment on the influence that these various healthcare professionals will have. The first is influence in general, and that is really the fact that there's specific regulations that allow some of these professionals now to prescribe and influence medications, and I'll show you some of the data later on that. I think Ron mentioned the importance of accessibility. Physicians are harder to see. Our representatives tell us that, and if you look at the accessibility of not only nurses and pharmacists, you can see them twice as often. You can maybe see them for twice the amount of time. So the number of interactions and ability for a pharmaceutical company or representative to influence, if you will, a pharmacist or a nurse to take action is much greater. And also in terms of competitiveness, pharmacists are struggling with their reimbursement models, changes in legislation that is happening every day. And so with that, they're also obviously looking at how can they not only be an important part of the healthcare model, but how also can they fit into a financial model that's sound and that makes sense for them. And I think based on that, their interest level in various diseases and as well in prescribing has increased. So with that in mind, I want to ask my second question, which is if you just look at the specifics of pharmacists or nurses, which healthcare professional do you feel will have the greatest impact on drug selection for your business? The answer is pharmacists. But from the audience participation, obviously nurses, depending on your business area, will also have some impact. So what is some of the evolving trends within these areas? If you look specifically, if we can just go back a slide. The traditional role of pharmacists is obviously in the left side of the panel here, from dispensing, recommendations, monitoring drug interaction, and that's now evolving obviously beyond just refilling to monitoring and adjusting doses, to initiating prescriptions, emergency medications, as well as ordering lab tests. So their involvement is obviously increasing in terms of their interaction with the patient and the potential influence. Similarly, in the specialty nursing area, there's obviously a growing trend towards increased number of clinics and very specific chronic diseases in specialty areas. Some are listed there: diabetes, asthma, osteoporosis. In terms of the increased number of nurses in primary care settings, I know